If tomorrow is World War III, what are you going to do tonight? Send a message to a relative, reserve food and find shelter, or simply standing still watching the sunset. The world today is not what it was 10 years ago, where the war takes months to escalate. In the age of supersonic and artificial intelligence, just a few minutes or a few seconds, it's enough for a country to be wiped off the map before any AI can understand what's going on. And then there's no AI that can tell where to start. Where is the response? What is wrong and what is attention? Some countries for a long time was in the line of sight of missile systems across 6. Some people seem to be at peace, but they keep these underground bases, strategic radar station, or just too close, with the big guys straining at the geopolitical chess game, and that's enough to make them the first victims. If the World War happens, the amazing thing is, countries that are not in the current war zone, it could be the trigger buttons for a global confrontation. It just takes a stray missile, wrong decision, or a misunderstood radar signal. The whole system of international alliances can be pulled into a downward spiral. It can't be controlled. From the green fields of Europe to the glittering islands of the Pacific, from the desert of the Middle East to modern financial centers. The following 10 countries are not only at risk of attack, it can also be erased in the first moments of a world war. What you're about to see is a personal, analytical view. It's built on geographic factors, military strategy, and the actual geopolitical context. Of course, that's not a very strong prediction. It's a referential strategic assumption. Before you start the video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe channel, and pop the alarm so you don't miss the video. Next on global warming issues. And now let's explore the first 10. They could be attacked if a world war broke out. Poland. The name is reminiscent of the ancient stone streets of Krakow, bustling markets in the heart of Warsaw, and a culture of Eastern European identity. At first glance, it's a peaceful country, step by step to become an emerging economic center of Asia 6. But on the surface, it's a dangerous strategic location, where only a small spark. It could also spark a global war. If World War III started in Europe, Poland may be the first place to sink in flames. Water. This doesn't happen to be the focus of every scenario. Military court in the center of Eastern Europe. This country borders Kaliningrad, an isolated Russian outpost. It's considered one of the most heavily militarized areas, the most special in Europe. According to the International Institute for Strategic Studies, Kaliningrad is deploying a ballistic missile system, Iskander-M, capable of carrying a nuclear warhead with a range of 500 kilometers, enough to cover the whole of Poland in minutes. Poland is the eastern front of NATO. It is home to more than 10,000 US and coalition troops, with modern bases like Polish, WASP, and advanced air defense systems such as Patriot. This position, on the one hand, plays a huge strategic role. Poland, on the other hand, is the #1 priority point of attack in any preemptive scenario. Military bases command centers of strategic airfields. They're all red dots on the map of any opponent. RAND Corporation report warns if war breaks out, Poland could be paralyzed in 60 minutes by supersonic missiles like Kinzhan to coordinate with cyber attacks and infrastructure sabotage. Poland's economy is not weak, with a GDP of more than $800 billion. This is one of the economies fastest growing in Europe. Defense spending represents 4.1% of GDP, the highest level in NATO, with the modern armed forces, from Leopard 2 tanks to F-16 fighters, and the order for F-35 is waiting to be delivered. But modern warfare isn't just tanks and guns. In the age of supersonic missiles, suicide drones and cyber warfare, telecommunication system energy centers, airports and seaports of Poland, it can be destroyed in the first few hours, before NATO could react, ironically enough. Close ties to NATO, even if it's a security shield, also made Poland a reaction beer. Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. To attack one country is to attack the whole. But that's what makes Poland so selectable. To send a deterrent message to the West. A CSIS report also described a scenario for an attack on Poland. Will open with paralysis, network command system, combined with artillery and missiles from Kaliningrad. Put NATO on the back foot from the first second. Since the Cold War, Poland has always been a buffer between the West and Russia. But now that boundary is almost gone. There is no safe zone. There's no time to retreat, If a lightning strike occurs, millions of people may not be able to evacuate. Life in Waziristan is peaceful, but modern war doesn't predict it. It started with an explosion. And Poland could be where that detonator first fell. Theo, Atlantic Council. Poland lacks strategic depth to hold out. Patriot systems are strong, but it's not designed to deal with mass, supersonic missile, at the same time and with a supply chain that relies heavily on an early blockade that could choke the country, both military and economic. The real question is not whether can land be attacked or not. It's what happens after that. To Ukraine of Poland. The door can be knocked down. First in the storm of war in Europe. Ukraine is the spark that has been burning for more than a decade. A country that doesn't have to wait for a world war to understand how is the roar of shells. These are ruined cities. It's children growing up in the middle of sirens and mothers who carry their children, fleeing in the bitter cold of winter. But what makes Ukraine a hotspot? More dangerous than anywhere else. Because of the location of this country, it's a cross between two worlds. Just one wrong move could also drag the entire global system into a downward spiral. Can say, Ukraine is the potential epicenter of World War III, with a population of about 37 million people estimated at 2024 after adjustment due to conflict. But the real value lies in geography, a strategic bridge between Eastern Europe and Russia, between the Black Sea and Central Europe, between important energy routes and logistics corridors. As reported by ISS 2023, Ukraine is the intersection of railway lines, seaport, and the logistics infrastructure that connects Europe to Asia. Make this water a prize that any power. They also want control or destroy to prevent the opponent. The current conflict in Ukraine, starting from 2014 and strong climb from 2022. It's just the opening chapter for an even darker scenario. In a global war, Ukraine will not only be a place of conflict, it's the target that needs to be neutralized immediately. Air bases, such as in Mykolaiv, logistics centers in Lviv or seaports in Odessa, are the key points that either side wants to control or destroy to cut off the enemy's supply lines. Report of RAND Corporation. 2022 shows that in a full-scale war scenario, Ukraine could be attacked simultaneously with ballistic missiles. Cyber warfare and air attacks make the infrastructure. The patient is paralyzed in the first few hours. Not like Poland, a NATO member with clear protections. Ukraine exists in a dangerous geopolitical gray zone. Not officially part of NATO, but receives significant military support from the West. Ukraine becomes a point of dispute with no way out. By Cypri in the period 2022.024, Ukraine receives billions of dollars in military aid from the US. Britain and the EU, including the HIMARS missile systems, Leopard tanks and drones. But it's this support. It makes Ukraine. It's an ideal target for preemptive strikes, an attack on the weapons depots or railway line connected to Poland. Romania and Slovakia could cripple the West's ability to resupply, turn Ukraine into a land of death before the alliance could react. Ukraine. It was the industrial and agricultural center of the former Soviet Union, with abundant resources and fertile soil. Today, the country remains one of the world's largest rice paddies, provides 10% of global wheat exports. If a global war breaks out, any side will want to control Ukraine, or make sure that no AI can be used as a springboard. Tragically, the more support we get from the West, Ukraine is more likely to become a target for every shipment of US weapons, every radar system from Germany, or every brigade trained by you. Ukraine is a threat in the eyes of its enemies. A report by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CIS's warning that the cyber attacks, they are targeting Ukraine's command and control system, combined with cruise missiles and suicide drones. It could collapse our defense in the first few hours of a full-scale war. Ukrainians have lived too long in the buffer zone of geopolitics, a place of peace. It's just the silence between the shelling, from Kiev to Kharkiv, from Odessa to Lviv. No place is really safe in an increasingly polarized world. Ukraine no longer chooses to remain on the sidelines. They have to be a part of the game. Even if the price can be total destruction, if the land war flames wide, wheat fields in Ukraine will not only burn, they're going to be a symbol of the collapse of an order. The world itself is too fragile. The most worrying thing is that Ukraine is not a dead end. If you keep in the smoke, if seaports in the Black Sea are blocked, and if the supply lines from the west are cut off, the fire will not only consume Ukraine, it will land to neighboring countries, trigger chain reactions across Europe and beyond. A smaller country that gets less attention, but of equal strategic importance. It will be the next target, a place where a single blow. It could also cripple the entire NATO alliance. BA Lithuania, in this chaotic picture of a world order that's crumbling. There are countries that seem small and quiet, but they hold the key points. It could determine the fate of the region. Lithuania, with a population of only about 2.8 million people, over 65,000 square kilometers, and a GDP of just $78 billion. It's not a military or economic power, but on the NATO security chessboard, petite country. This is the crux of a deadly strategic weakness. Suwałki Gap, an incident in this place. Not only does BA of the Berlin water get cut off, it can also trigger chain reactions to bring Europe into a cycle of conflict. The Suwałki Gap is a narrow strip of land about 65 kilometers long, located in the middle of Kaliningrad, separate territories of Russia and Belarus. Moscow's close ally connects Lithuania with Poland. It is the only bridge between the Baltic states and the rest of NATO. This strip of land with its dense forest and complex terrain. It's like a bottleneck of the world's largest military alliance. Theo Ren Corporation, if the Suwałki Gap is closed, the entire region would be in isolation. There's no supplies. There's no support, no way back. Any interruptions here, even due to military tensions, political crisis, or a deliberate act of provocation, can trigger a domino effect. The border between peace and war, erased in just a few hours. Libya has no illusions about her dangerous location. It is a member of NATO and the EU. This country has been the front line of the West. It's also a testing ground for the real cohesion of commitments, collective security. An attack on Lithuania is no longer an internal affair. It's a declaration of war on NATO. Theo Atlantic Council, any VA military contact in Suwałki Gap. It could also lead to a reaction from the US and Germany and drag along the whole league into an unanticipated confrontation to deal with. Lithuanian government is speeding up defense modernization, increase military spending to 5% of GDP from 2026, second highest in NATO. Germany plans to deploy 5,000 troops in Lithuania to 2027 key routes such as Via Baltica. It is being upgraded to ensure quick maneuverability in an emergency, but with limited resources. Lithuania's resistance remains fragile, like a candle fluttering in the wind. What is worrying? It's not just Lithuania's strategic location, but also at the level of indifference of the rest of the world. As the world converges, attention on the Ukrainian battlefield or the Taiwan Strait. The Suez Canal is the place where life and death are decided. It's been neglected in strategic discussions. Unverified data from Social Network X shows people on the border are starting to worry, even considering leaving the area. Wide LAN insecurity. Deputy Minister of Defense of Lithuania, Thomas Kurliaskar, once spoke to Politico Suwałki. The gap is our lifeblood. If you lose it, the whole area will be in darkness. It's not an exaggerated statement. It's a wake-up call to a shaky order. If Poland is the door to Eastern Europe, Ukraine is the hot front, Lithuania is the key, where just a spark is needed, can also detonate the entire gunpowder block of the area. We don't need a full-scale invasion. Just one incident, one wrong action, or even an over-the-top military exercise. That's enough to put NATO on red alert. The line between Rande and traitor. The response has never been so fragile. In an age where peace is no longer the norm, the fragility of Libya is a reminder that sometimes the link is the weakest. It's where the survival of the entire system is determined. Israel is not just a country. That's the proof. Living for the ability to survive in adversity, a people forged in fire. Always be prepared to stand up to any threat, any risk of conflict, with an area of more than 22,000 square kilometers. It's smaller than the US state of New Jersey and a population of about 10 million people. Israel is a small light, but burning in the global geopolitical landscape in a new great war. Israel is not allowed to choose its time nor its opponents. The storm will come at any time, from all directions and without mercy. It's right in the middle of the Middle East where religion, history, and power intersect. Conflict is an inseparable part of Israel's identity, surrounded by countries that have repeatedly claimed, "I want to erase my existence." Israel has built an almost surreal defense system. The Iron Dome is not just a technological marvel. It's also an indomitable symbol of survival, theo-breaking defense. This system has intercepted thousands of rockets, drones and missiles with over 90% success rate, but even a perfect system, nor can it fend off a multifaceted attack in the global war. Geography is destiny. Israel is the strategic choke point connecting Europe, Persian Gulf and Africa, every hotspot from Ukraine, Taiwan Strait to the Korean Peninsula, could bring the flames of war to this country in the eyes of the West's rivals. Israel is an ideal place to send the strongest message. An attack on Israel is not just a military action. It's also a statement challenging the world order. As CIS analyzed, Israel is not just a country. It's a symbol of American presence and commitment in the Middle East. Israel is not alone with strong American support. Military aid up to $8 billion a year in strategic ties with NATO, with many Gulf countries. Israel is a link important in the Western alliance network. But that's why this country has become a priority target for forces that want to challenge Washington. An attack on Israel could be a catalyst to turn the global geopolitical chessboard upside down. Despite having a dynamic economy with a GDP of nearly $530 billion, driven by high-tech and defense, Israel still faces a geographic death row. It's a lack of strategic depth. From Tel Aviv to the border just a few minutes drive away, Ben Gurion International Airport, blood vessels of commerce, just a few short-range rockets from the front line. There's no buffer zone, no hiding place. A quiet but terrifying fragility. The most terrifying thing is not a single attack. Missile from Iran, suicide drone from Hezbollah. Rocket from Gaza. Cyber war hits civilian infrastructure and internal unrest. It can all happen simultaneously. Only Iran and proxies like Hezbollah. It has hundreds of thousands of rockets and UAVs ready to overwhelm Iran. If full-scale war breaks out, Israel may prepare to open more than 10,000 public shelters and increase hospital capacity as a red alert signal about the risk of regulatory conflict. Big deal with Iran. In the first few hours of a simultaneous attack, Israel could fall into a state of water power paralysis. Contact information. The survival of a modern society can collapse under precise and merciless attacks. Rand Corporation warned. This scenario doesn't just threaten Israel. It could also drag America into a cycle of war, fomenting regional conflict or worse, a global war. Israel has never confirmed its possession of nuclear weapons. According to Syria, the country has about 80 to 90 nuclear warheads, ready to use in a bad scenario if the country's survival is put on the balance sheet. Israel, it could be the first country to use weapons of mass destruction, mass in the modern era. It's not just a regional disaster, it's also the starting point for a chain reaction. It can't be controlled. CIS warns of the risk of escalation of Israeli tensions. Iran with Tehran's nuclear program. It's a detonator ready to explode at any time. The Middle East has long been the world's gunpowder keg. An airstrike at the wrong time, a propaganda video that's out of bounds, a border crossing, all of which can trigger the land-wide earthquake. But in this polarized world, Israel is no longer the story of the Middle East. This is where the alliances intersect, the conspiracies intertwine, and the red lines are challenged every day. The big question is, the world can act fast enough to put out the flames, or will be helpless to see the map of the Middle East? Maybe the answer doesn't come from the desert of Judea. It's from somewhere else, which used to be a symbol of stability in the West. But now it's becoming the weakest link in the global alliance chain. The German year. Germany, a symbol of civilized stability and prosperity. It's not where you think about war. With more than 84 million people and the world's fourth largest economy, GDP of over $4.6 trillion. Germany is the leader of the European Union, the EU, and the backbone of the NATO defense system in Europe. But it's this importance. Make Germany a target. It cannot be ignored in a world. Countdown to conflict. If the Middle East is on fire or Israel is under siege, the eyes of global strategists will be on Germany. It's not because the water is weak. It's because it's the nerve center of the West, where a precise blow, it could cripple an entire alliance. Germany is located in Central Europe adjacent to Poland. Ukraine and the Baltic region, geopolitical hotspots where NATO and Russia face-to-face confrontation, is the logistics center. Command and deploy NATO forces. Germany plays an irreplaceable role, all supply orders, and the reaction of the alliance in Eastern Europe. They all have to pass through German territory. It's also a strategic crossroads for NATO, with the roads, railways and seaports such as Hamburg and Rotterdam. It's a vital artery for military transport and equipment. You just need an attack, whether it's missile cyber warfare or hybrid warfare. Go to these buttons. The whole Western world could collapse from within. Ramstein Air Force Base in the Palatinate state of Greenland. It's the best example of Germany's role. It's not just a military base. It's the brain of American military operations in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. From Ramstein, the orders are transmitted. Remote-controlled drones in Syria and radar systems. Communications and missile defense. It can be connected directly to the Pentagon. THEO Atlantic Council. Ramstein is the heart of NATO in Europe. More than 50% of the alliance's air operations. An attack on Ramstein, even with long-range missiles from Kaliningrad, or a cyber war. Disrupting the command system, that could render NATO incapacitated for several hours. Create opportunities for competitors to exploit. Even as an economic power, Germany is facing strategic gaps. After years of cutting defense spending, modern German army Bundeswehr, but we still need more depth. THEO, the New York Times. Germany meets 2% defense spending target, NATO's GDP last year, after 10 years below this level. Commitment to increase spending to 3% of GDP from 2026 and deploying the tank brigade in Lithuania is a positive step. But the German army still lacks manpower and reserves. Brogue's report. Germany needs at least 100,000 more troops to meet its commitment to NATO, a difficult goal to achieve in the short term. Dependence on imported energy and transport routes through Eastern Europe increases the risk of blockade of a port or sea route. Hamburg, or a blow to energy infrastructure, like the Nord Stream pipeline, even though it stopped working. That could push Germany into economic crisis, an economy that depends on supply chains. A global response like Germany could fall into disarray if the transport routes are interrupted. If Germany shakes, Europe will shake. Frankfurt, the third largest financial center in the world. It is the headquarters of the European Central Bank (YCB) and the German Stock Exchange. An attack, whether it's physical or cyber warfare, into the financial infrastructure in Frankfurt. That could cause the euro to plummet. The stock market crashed. The EU financial system is in crisis. As the financial crisis drags on, land will spread like a tsunami through the Western economies. Germany is a symbol of European soft power. A blow to Germany is not just about NATO. It's also a warning that, even the most modern and safe country, it's not invulnerable in a new world war, where the reaction time is measured in seconds. A surprise attack on Ramstein, or logistics centers, that could make NATO incapable of coordination before the US or allies in time to act. Breaking defense emphasizes that new forms of conflict that incorporate cyber attacks. Spying and sabotage, that's the biggest threat to bases like Ramstein. Germany is the foundation of Western security. If Ramstein is disabled, if NATO's supply chain is cut off right here in Germany, the question is no longer who wins. It's whether there's enough AI to control the next storm. NATO can react. The US can intervene, but in a modern war. Speed and surprise will decide everything. As Europe shakes, my eyes will turn to another country, an island that once believed that the ocean was a shield. But now we have to face the fact that water can no longer stop missiles, and the sirens can sound at any time. 6 people used to believe the sea is an inviolable shield, that the islands, especially a former empire that once ruled a quarter of the globe, will be immune to global firestorms. But the 21st century has proven otherwise. Water can't stop missiles, and the ocean couldn't resist the blows. Exactly thousands of kilometers away, Kingdom of England. It's a symbol of the stability of democracy, the parliament of moss-covered castles, and the days of imperial glory. It's becoming an eye now, the weakest link in the Atlantic chain. It's not because they lack military capability. It's because their strategic location is too important to ignore. but too isolated to be rescued in time. With over 67 million people and a GDP of approximately $3.3 trillion. You're not just America's most loyal ally. It's also the nerve center for all intelligence operations. NATO military logistics and coordination, from Chotanham, electronic intelligence capital, to Philadelphia Eye of God, RITA, from post-smoke naval base arterial. Fast lane, a garrison of nuclear-tipped submarines. Every location is circled on the map. Of those who want to dismantle the Western order from within, what most of the public seems to forget is that they're not just NATO members. They're the launcher, the trigger arm. It's the coordination center, behind the scenes for campaigns in Eastern Europe, the Middle East and the Pacific. If war breaks out, the missile will not target Berlin first, but London. North Yorkshire is Scotland, where the whole system is located. Remote command and deterrence of the West in the century. A war can start from a line of malware, a false signal, or a precision cyber attack. Your country can be targeted in a matter of hours, or even a few minutes, GCHQ. Your top cyber intelligence agency repeatedly warned, modern wars don't shoot like traditional ones. It starts with the bank stopping trading. The hospital lost power. The radar is blind, and military systems are lured by false signals. If it all happens simultaneously, even the most sophisticated defense systems, not enough time to react. I own Trident, the people's system, nuclear placed on patrol submarines 24 out of 7. But in fact, the whole system is concentrated in Fastlane. Scotland, an intellectual weakness, just needs a precise shot. Trident can be disabled in the blink of an eye. Then your self-defense mechanism will be paralyzed. And the entire response will depend on Washington, where immediate feedback cannot be guaranteed. If you are on multiple fronts at the same time, imagine if London, the second largest financial center in the world, excluded from the international payment system. SWIFT in a few hours, if Heathrow Airport is paralyzed, if the BBC is silent, if air bases lose their counter capabilities. What will your kingdom become? It's an isolated island, lost contact, lost command, and totally dependent on transatlantic aid. It's a strategic weakness. You left the EU, and that means losing the logistics network. Response and intelligence from 6 places. America's closest ally, thousands of miles across the Atlantic. Meanwhile, NATO defense systems are all focused on Central Europe. It's a surprise attack. Hit him directly and isolate him before the Allies, in time to react. It's not just a viable strategy, it's a very worthwhile strategy, with any hostile forces in the mind of the world. Your country is still a symbol of indomitable. Churchill Bliss, keep calm and carry on. Stay calm and keep moving forward. Remain embedded in the collective memory. The enemy today, no longer in the form of evil, flying through the channel. It's a stream of malware from a foreign server. It's an armed satellite in orbit. It's a supersonic missile that wanders between radar layers. And those attacks, it doesn't have to go through Parliament or be notified. So if one day, the bright red lights on the radar screen, simultaneous telecommunications stations operating abnormally. War is no longer an assumption. It has started. And when all eyes are on you, to find out what's going on in a place that seems less important, a country famous for its wine, fashion, and the old squares. It's the last link the enemy wants to preempt. Because if we ignore it, the West could lose the Mediterranean. 7 ideas at a time when global powers are wobbling. From London to Berlin, from Jerusalem to Tokyo. Many people still carry a romantic illusion that, if World War III really breaks out, Italy, with its ancient beauty, slow pace of life, and great artistic heritage, will be the world's last refuge. But that's not a picture of the future. It's the nostalgic shadow of a dead past, hidden behind the Roman arenas, the loved Sea Venice, and the mossy limestone walls. It's a cold truth. It's the most fragile link in the Mediterranean, a strategic breakpoint that 01 Jumin can protect at the right time in modern warfare. Exploded, with a population of over 58 million people and a GDP of over $2 trillion. It's the 3rd largest economy in the Eurozone, a global cultural powerhouse. But the strategic value of the mind is not in its own power, but in a geographic location that's irreplaceable. The intersection of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, where all the military operations along the 6-point coast can be deployed. coordinate and launch. That's why the US and NATO was located in Italy, one of the military networks outside the territory, the densest from Aviano Air Base in the north, Naples Naval Base in the Middle East, to the logistics and strategic monitoring station. Sigonella in Sicily, the key to the whole campaign. Mediterranean and Middle East. It means that if war breaks out, it's not a place to stand out. It's the first launch pad. It's also a disabled priority target. It just takes a bunch of cruise missiles to hit them. Command centers in Aviano, or destroying communications in Naples. The whole logistics steering system, logistics and coordination not. NATO's Navy in Southern Europe will be crippled. The scary thing is, they don't have to wait for the firecrackers or the tanks to come in. Just a few clicks from the drone system, virus informatics, or insider attacks from local extremist groups. Despite being a founding member of NATO, the mind is struggling with internal weaknesses, political fragmentation of the constantly changing government, limited defense budget, and degraded defense infrastructure, especially in the South. It's where the military focus is. A high-speed fight will not take countries slow, patching weaknesses. The mind in its current state is unable to react. They can't resist either. Geographically, Italy has more than 7,000 kilometers of coastline. It's a gift of travel, but a nightmare of defense. There's no strategic depth. There's no solid layer. Inability to disperse forces, a naval blockade from the south, combined with simultaneous cyber attacks on the electrical system. Maritime finance. Enough to put this country into total paralysis without a bullet flying through the sky. The port of Genoa Trieste, trade artery connecting Asia with Europe. If you're cut off, you're no longer able to access energy, food, or production materials. And then the country was the cradle of the Roman Empire, will be strangled in the midst of its own great geography. It's even more dangerous. He doesn't have an iron dome like Israel. There's no multi-layered defense like Germany. There's no independent nuclear deterrent like you in a high-speed conflict. Rome could be thrust into chaos in a matter of hours, and then the only thing left is heritage, not sovereignty, in every war. The person who gets hit first is not necessarily the strongest. It's the wrong person at the right time. But lack of defense, and Italy, with all its historical beauty and strategic role, it's the perfect place to start. Europe's first fire, as the Mediterranean burns, when the Sigonella base is engulfed in a column of smoke, when the sea lanes are blocked and the cities fall into chaos, Rome will no longer be a symbol of ancient glory. It's a bloody lesson for the modern world, that any civilization, no matter how magnificent, can survive without a timely shield. 8. Taiwan. If Europe is a place where war can rise from the explosion, the first of a rocket, Asia is the land where the storm, geopolitical, can be activated with just a touch of the radar screen. And in the middle of the blue Pacific, there's a small island. It seems anonymous, but it's a potential trigger. Could drag the world into the Taiwan War. Many people look at Taiwan just like a piece of land off the coast of China, an autonomous democracy. It's a technology manufacturing center, a tourist destination, but with global strategic planners, Taiwan is not a territory. It's a global switch, a trigger point. It could collapse the world order in less than a day, with a population of over 23 million people. The island produces more than 60%, the world's most advanced VA processor. The chips that control everything from smartphones, aircraft, banking systems to both power grids and modern weaponry. The world is not just losing a trading partner. It will be lost. The nerve center of global industry? It's not a weakness, it's a death. Taiwan's GDP is approximately $750 billion, a respectable figure. But it's not what the superpowers are most interested in. What makes Taiwan so central is its location, technology capability strategies and symbolic meanings. With Beijing, Taiwan is an internal unfinished business for Washington. This is an unofficial one, but you can't lose it. That's what makes this island a crossroads, between the two swords, where no one dares to pull out their hands and no one wants to let go first. Not like Ukraine. Taiwan has no supply roads. There are no friendly borders. There's no strategic buffer zone, airport. Radar stations are within reach of ballistic missiles, suicide tremors in cyber war. An attack on Taiwan could take place escalation, and it's over in a few hours. before any coalition could react. In the real world, the war did not wait for Parliament to pass a resolution, even though the Taiwanese military has been well-trained and prepared for decades. The most terrifying thing is not power. It's survival time, a preemptive strike. It can also destroy communication systems, radar paralysis, block all support from outside. At that time, Taiwan was no longer an outpost. It's an isolated black box in the middle of the ocean. No one knows what's going on inside until it's too late and something scarier. A blow to Taiwan is not just a military action. It's a declaration of war on the entire global supply chain. Within 72 hours after the island went silent, car factories in the US, defense production line in Europe, and technology companies in Asia will stop working due to lack of semiconductor chips. The paralysis won't come from bombs but from blank screens. The bank stopped working. The ambulance didn't start and the hospital lost control. But Taiwan is also a symbol. If it collapses, belief in the ability to protect allies. The West also collapsed. That's why it's just the most protected target. They're the most vulnerable prey. There's no gray area. There is no way back, and a peace agreement that is enough to deter. And if you think that, the worst-case scenario is that Taiwan is attacked. Let's think about what really worries strategists. It's the chain effect. When the conflict flared from the Taiwan Strait, it can pull along the entire Allied system, from Japan to South Korea to US bases in Guam to Hawaii, even as far as Australia. A single action can spark a conflict, the first full-scale breakthrough of the century, not just by weapons, but by market disruption, political crisis, and the collapse of digital civilization. Mature Korean, if Taiwan is the button. It could start a war in the Pacific. It's only a few hours away. Korea is a knife close to the neck every day. With 51 million people and a GDP of over $1.7 trillion. Korea is a symbol of prosperity, from the high-speed subway in Seoul to the global K-pop wave. But behind the lights is a harsh reality. South Korea lies just minutes from hell shelling. If war breaks out, this country may be the first victim. Not because they are weak, but because they are too close to death. Seoul is home to more than 10 million people, just outside the DMZ, the border with North Korea. 56 kilometers, this distance is so short that a shell can get through in less than a minute. South Korea and North Korea. Tien is still in a state of technical warfare by the War of 1000. The 951,900 years of BA ended with only one treaty, Fragile Truce. It's not a peace treaty. Demilitarized Zone DM. Z is one of the military borders. The highest level of chemistry, with thousands of artillery, short-range missiles, and special forces are always ready. South Korea has no buffer zone. There is no warning time, and there's no absolute safe haven in a scenario of global conflict, even if it starts in Taiwan, Ukraine, or the Middle East. South Korea will immediately be dragged into the center of the storm. North Korea, with the support of China and Russia, they can take the opportunity to attack. It doesn't need a complicated reason. A surprise attack on Seoul, Incheon or Busan will not only target South Korea, but also tested the resolve of our allies, especially America. South Korea is the world's 10th largest economic power, with corporations like Samsung, Hyundai, and LG lead automotive and electronic semiconductor industry. Samsung makes 20% of global memory chips, only behind Taiwan's TSMC. But it's the dependence of the world into Korean technology. It's a deadly weakness. Factories in Seoul, data center in Gyeonggi and Busan port, blood vessel export. They're all close to the border, vulnerable to attack. Theo Atlantic Council. There's a disruption in Korea, could cause global supply chains to collapse, from trams in the US to phones in Europe. South Korea is also the strategic center of the US alliance, with nearly 30,000 American troops stationed in bases like Osan and Hamfris. South Korea is the springboard for military operations in Northeast Asia. THAAD radar systems and the command center directly linked to Washington, and Tokyo has made South Korea an unmissable target. If you target these bases, it's not just about Seoul. It's also sending a message to the Pentagon. South Korea is not naive to the threat. This country spends $50 billion a year on defense. Modern army with the Black Panther tank, Dosan-class submarine and CAM defense system, public shelter in Seoul. designed for millions of people. And people are trained to evacuate, but in modern warfare, not prepared enough to withstand a preemptive strike, combo of cyber warfare, drones and artillery, an attack on the GPS signal grid, two data centers that can propel South Korea's digital society into chaos for a few hours. South Korea's terrain increases the risk, surrounded by the sea and narrow land borders. The country lacks a strategic exit. If Busan port is blockaded or the airport, Incheon is in, South Korea will become an isolated island. North Korea can exploit mountainous terrain to prolong the conflict, while South Korea has difficulty maintaining logistics. If the roads are cut off, an attack on South Korea is not just a regional disaster, it will trigger the alliance commitment to pull the US. Japan and possibly NATO go to war with North Korea, and beyond that, China and Russia. A firecracker fell. Seoul could spark a nuclear conflict. More than one country has suffered a nuclear disaster, ever rose from the ashes. Now we're at risk. It's a strategic target in the Pacific, and a peaceful morning can turn into a fateful day. South Korea did not choose this fate, but fate chose it. A brilliant country, modern but always living in the name of historical conflict. 10 Japanese. Japan, country of cherry blossoms and birth vessels, Kansen. It's a living testament to rebirth, from the ashes of two 1945 nuclear bombs. Japan has risen to become the world's third largest economy, with a GDP of over $4,200 billion and a population of approximately 125 million people. Tokyo lights up Kyoto, preserving the soul of culture and technology. Japan shapes the global future. But in a world that's leaning towards war, Japan's peaceful image hides a disturbing reality. This country is in the midst of a geopolitical storm. Pacific Ocean, when the historical defensive advantage is no longer sufficient to protect against modern threats. Throughout history, Japan has never been invaded due to its unique geographical location, an isolated archipelago surrounded by the ocean, with rugged mountainous terrain covering 80% of the territory. Pacific storms and rough seas. It used to be a natural barrier to defend Japan from attacks from 6 European countries, even the invasion attempts of the Mongol Empire. The 13th century also lost 7. For kamikaze, the divine winds from the sea. But in modern warfare, the ocean is no longer a shield, it's a highway for missiles. Ships and drones. Japan is now a predictable target in dramas. The conflict is not because it is weak, but because it is too important. Japan is the U.S. strategic springboard in Asia, with more than 50,000 American troops stationed at bases like Okinawa, Yokosuka, and Kadena, the Air Force heart of the American alliance. These bases are logistics centers in Japan, radar and supplies, support a strategy to deter China and North Korea. But it's the American presence. Turn Japan into a beer, a military expert said. Attack on Okinawa. It's about hitting half of America's power in the Pacific, in the eyes of the opponent. Japan is not just an independent country. It's Washington's transit station, where an attack could cripple the regional alliance. Japan is surrounded by 4 sensitive military forces: China, Russia, North Korea, and the United States, near hotspots like Taiwan, East China Sea and Korean Peninsula. China, with its claim on the Senkaku Islands, regularly dispatching Coast Guard ships and planes close by. North Korea, with River 18 missile, has many test shots. Russia maintains a strong navy in the east, ready to threaten Japan's maritime routes. Japan lacks strategic depth with narrow territory. Big cities like Tokyo, Osaka, and Yokohama are both close to the coast, vulnerable to attack from warships or cruise missiles. Chip factories in Kumamoto, Yokohama Port, and National Grid, the economic pillars. They're all easy targets according to the Atlantic Council, a meeting. Cyber attacks or blockades of shipping through the Miyako Strait can strangle Japan, which depends 90% on oil and food imports. If the global supply chain is disrupted, Japan will fall into crisis before the Allies could come to their aid. Japan is not passive in the face of threats. With a defense budget of $60 billion, the Japan Self-Defense Force, JSDF, has the Izumo aircraft carrier, F-35 aircraft and Aegis defense system. The government has pledged to increase defense spending to 2% of GDP, development of long-range missiles for deterrence, alliance with U.S. Korea, and treaties like the Quad of Diamonds with American and Japanese members. India, Australia, and the American-AUKUS agreement. Australia strengthens Japan's position, but as CSIS warns, no system can stop an attack. Multi-point combined cyber warfare, drones and hypersonic weapons. Japan has been reborn since World War II, but in a new world war. The world may not give them a second chance. If Tokyo is in the dark, if Kadena is disabled, or if the chip supply chain is disrupted, Japan will drag with the global economic crisis, affecting 10% of the world's high-tech output. If the missile landed on Okinawa, if Tokyo is rocked by cyber war, or if the Miyako Strait is blocked, it's not just the beginning of conflict. It's the end of the current order. Japan, the country of anime robots and culture of peace, will become the front line of a war, shaping the future of humanity, the geographic advantages that have protected Japan for centuries. It's now Achilles' heel, when the ocean is no longer a shield but a battlefield. Journey through the 10 most vulnerable countries. If World War III happens, from Poland, Lithuania, Germany, Israel to Taiwan, Korea, and Japan, to paint a grim picture where no place is invulnerable. These countries are not just points on the map. It's the knots that decide the fate of the world. The greatest fear is not the power of the enemy. It's our subjectivity. We believe that war is a distant prospect. Peace always exists. But every day the world gets closer to the edge, and countries that have been evaluated is highly defensible. It may become the earliest target. Time is running out. Don't let indifference win. Please share your story and comment below. Which country, according to you, will be the first detonator? Any country can be safe. Don't forget to click follow channel so you don't miss the videos. Next, thank you very much. When the ocean is no longer a shield, but a battlefield journey through the 10 most vulnerable countries if World War III happens. From Poland, Lithuania, Germany, Israel to Taiwan, Korea and Japan, to paint a grim picture where no place is invulnerable. These countries are not just points on the map. It's the knots that decide the fate of the world. The greatest fear is not the power of the enemy. It's our subjectivity. We believe that war is a distant prospect. Peace always exists. But every day the world gets closer to the edge, and countries that have been evaluated is highly defensible. It may become the earliest target. Time is running out. Don't let indifference win. Please share your story and comment below. Which country, according to you, will be the first detonator? Any country can be safe. Don't forget to click follow channel so you don't miss the videos. Next, thank you very much.